Hey, what's up, everybody? We've got a great pod today as we head into Memorial Day weekend. We're going to talk Jets, broadcasting, playoffs, and several sports with the voice of the Jets, Bob Wischusen. OTAs, of course, started here this week in Florham Park, and we're also going to dive into what happened at the NFL league meetings in Minnesota. Finally, I'm going to deliver an extra point. The official Jets podcast is presented by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop game day ready jewelry styles and so much more at kendrascott.com.
We beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
It's picked off. Aaron Glenn. Jumbled and caught. Jumbo Elliott. One-handed catch. Incredible. Back gets running loose. Reeves. Can't wait.
Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride.
Shoes, great to see you, buddy.
Glad to be here.
Hey, what were your expectations? Let's go in a time machine right now, back to 2002, when you were applying to be the guy, the voice of the Jets.
Oh, well, there was some drama back then, that not everybody knows about. Almost didn't get the job. It was written in the paper that somebody else got the job, but hung in there. And, I was just making my way, still trying to kind of find a lane in New York that was mine, right? Like every job that I had, I was kind of backing up other people, filling in over here as a jack of all trades at WFAN. And then I was at MSG, anybody that missed for play-by-play, any chance I had to do a game, it was because I was filling in for someone on their job. It wasn't my job. So this was the first time that, and, credit very much back then to Bob Parenti, Terry Bradway, like those guys were probably more than anyone the ones that pushed it across the finish line on my behalf. They were the first to offer me a job that was mine, right? This is your gig and you're going to be identified with us. And I'm glad it worked out because, it's 30 years now, right? My first year of covering the team was 96. That's year 2 of Kotite. And now
Right.
we're 2025. So all in, that's 30 years of being around the Jets on basically a weekly basis all season. And, so it's crazy.
So that was a different world back then in 2002. What was the reaction from family and friends when they saw on the paper that somebody else was getting the job?
Yeah, you know what? I don't even know if any of them noticed it because it was like it was like a blurb in the back of the New York Post. It wasn't something that, like, I think it was kind of put to bed and I was back in the mix before anybody even realized it. I noticed it. I saw it. I confronted it or I dealt with it. But yeah, it was interesting. I remember it was written in the back of the New York Post that I was going to not get the job, that someone else kind of very matter-of-factly had been given the job. And ironically enough, I saw that the exact same day I was going out to Long Island to do a arena football game, New York Dragons game on MSG. And our halftime guest, ironically enough, that day was scheduled to be Terry Bradway. So I rode out there thinking that this was going to be the most uncomfortable 10-minute interview ever because he was going to be there knowing I didn't get the job. And I was probably going to be telling him that day or soon after that my time with the Jets was done. Like, if someone else gets the job, I'm going to go find something else to do. I'm not going to just forever going forward be the backup guy to someone else and, do the pre and post game show. I've been the backup guy for 3 or 4 years now. If I don't get the job, I'm done. Well, he comes into the booth and I said, Terry, how are you? You can't be happy to see me. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I didn't get the job. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, it's in the paper. I didn't get it. You gave it to someone else. And he said, not true. I said, really? He said, I'm just telling you, I'm in all of those meetings, right? Like, I'm kind of high up the food chain at the Jets. I'm the general manager. If you didn't get the job or if someone else did, I would know about it. I was like, okay. He's like, I'm just telling you. hang in there. That decision has not been made yet. Not true. And if I hadn't seen him that day, I don't know what my reaction would have been or how long it would have lingered. I just got really lucky that the day that I saw what turned out not to be true, written in the paper, I was going to basically have the horse's mouth, walk right into the booth and be able to deal with it that afternoon. And he was great. And he told me to hang in there. And eventually, in the end, it all worked out.
All right, some play-by-play guys, they grow up in Los Angeles, they start calling games for maybe a professional team in Chicago, or somebody grows up in Miami and they're the play-by-play guy for a team out in San Francisco. But you are a local guy. How significant was it to you, and is it to you to this day that you are the Jets play-by-play man?
Yeah, it matters to me to be identified with something that people where you live care about. That matters. And not that all of the work that I do for ESPN isn't great. And I aspire to do bigger and better for them. Called one of the, semifinal or rather quarterfinal games of the college football playoff this past year. Regularly doing, you know, ACC, Big 12, SEC games for them on Saturdays. Obviously, my role with the NHL went all the way through the second round of the playoffs and touched on like 5 different playoff series and had a chance to be in all of those buildings. And it's amazing. Even last year, had a chance to call a Rangers conference final game, which was a thrill. So all of the work that I do for ESPN is a blast. But it matters to me being a New York area guy. I mean, I grew up basically a half hour outside of New York City in New Jersey. And outside of the 4 years that I spent in college and my first job out of college for about 2.5 years when I was in Miami, the other 47 of the 53, now going on 54 years I've been alive, have all been here. This is where I'm from. This is where my family's from. This is where all, the majority of my friends are. And so, yeah, to be identified with something that is ingrained into the New York sports scene matters to me.
If I had told you in '02 that you were going to be entering your 24th season in 2025, you have to be one of the longest tenured play-by-play guys in the National Football League. I don't have the list in front of me, but what would you have said?
I don't know. That's a good question. I was just thrilled to get the job. And then every year as we went forward, I was just looking forward to the next year. Then all of a sudden, season piled upon season, piled upon season. And you start to realize, geez, I've been doing this for 15 years. Okay, great. I still love hanging out with those guys. We have a great group that we get to hang out with every Sunday. You know them all. So it's always fun. No matter how rough the seasons are, no matter how much the team is struggling, it's always fun to go to the games and be at the games and call the games. So I never really thought of it in terms of, the time going by. And I guess, none of the other networks ever put me to any kind of a choice. Like NBC, CBS, Fox, no one ever came to me and offered me any kind of an NFL job. I don't know why. No one ever showed interest. So I was never really ever put to any kind of a decision by anyone where I would have to decide to give it up or not continue with it. It's just always been a given that every fall it's going to be time for another Jet season. And so, I guess I'm one of the longest tenured. Certainly there, Merrill Reese in Philly, Brad Sham in Dallas. I know my buddy Dave Pasch has been doing the Cardinals forever. Like there's a handful of other guys out there that are well into their 20s, if not their 30s. Merrill might be doing the Eagles for over 40 years now.
Yeah.
So there are some guys that have become the identifiable voice of their team for a long time. And I think part of the reason that all of them have lasted as long as they've lasted is because I don't think they've ever thought of it in any other terms than that just looking forward to another season arriving and looking forward to having a chance to go do the games again. And by the time, all those years pile up, you almost didn't notice because it's been a fun ride along the way.
What's the approach painting the picture for Jets fans? Because you are broadcasting on radio or streaming platforms as opposed to broadcast where people are watching the game with you. And also you have to take into account, and I know you do, is that, hey, there are some people still to this day who are going to listen to you and turn their TV down.
Yeah. And I appreciate anyone that does that. Obviously, there's the mechanics of it where even if someone is syncing us up to the TV or maybe we're on a streaming platform, I have to assume the vast majority of people that are listening aren't looking at the game, right? It is still radio. So you do need to give people the geography of where the ball is, how much time is left, what's the score, who's on the field, what's the formation. Television, I don't have to do any of that, right? All of that information is on the screen. Down and distance, how many timeouts, what's the score, what quarter are we in, time left in that quarter, the clock. Right? Like all of that's on the screen. You can see where the ball is. So a lot of times, on TV, my lead up to a play can be something as simple of in a huge third down. And then I just lay out and let the play snap and happen. Radio, you can't do that. Obviously, radio, you are giving everybody all of the nuts and bolts geography of where it's at. But just in terms of how I call the game, I am aware that 95% of our audience, I'm assuming, are Jets fans that want to know how are the Jets playing, the stories about their players. Like that, there is that focus. You're doing the game through that lens. I'm calling it through a Jets lens. So, most of my prep is on the Jets. I do certainly prep on the opposition, but most Jet fans don't need all the nuts and bolts about the backup tight end for the Atlanta Falcons. Like that's not their interest. They want to know, what the game plan is for the Jets that week and how they're playing. And so, am I a little bit more enthusiastic when the Jets score a touchdown than the opposition? Sure. Absolutely. Jet fans are listening. I'm a Jet fan. I want them to win. So clearly, you're a little more excited when they're doing well and they're winning. But also in New York, and I think we take a particular pride in this as New Yorkers in this area, is New Yorkers don't want to be lied to. Right? They don't want to be told that they're not seeing what they know they're seeing. So if the team isn't playing well, we say the team's not playing well. Because like if it was, Oklahoma Sooner football and your job is to wave the pom-poms and every Saturday it's go Sooners, and on their actual broadcasts they say, we, us, we need a big drive here. This is a big play for us. No, it's never with me. You will never hear that because I don't play for the team. I don't coach. I am documenting the Jet game, but for the Jets. So as much as I like to think of myself kind of a part of the organization, I'm calling the game with hopefully an honesty to it that a New Yorker will appreciate, because I think New Yorkers appreciate that. They don't want to be rooted for or lied to and told that things are better than they know it to be.
How do you make the adjustments appear seamless? You work with Marty Lyons for 20 plus years. You guys have a tremendous relationship. He still is an ambassador for the organization, a beloved dude. And then there's a transition to Anthony Becht and UNAB right from day one. To the listener, you guys sounded like you had been working together for years.
It's really mostly a testament to those two guys. They both have made it, Marty for 23 years and Anthony for last year as well, made it so easy because, if you're on the air for 3.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon, it's hard to kind of hide your personality completely. And I think Jet fans that hear Marty and hear Anthony, their vibe off of them is, boy, those sound like two really good guys. Like they sound like really nice dudes. And I will say about both of them, they are both nicer than you think they are. So in terms of like their professionalism and their ease of being able to work with them, if you can't work with Marty or Anthony, then you're the problem. So I don't really even feel like there had to be an adjustment period. Probably wouldn't have to be an adjustment period for anyone in my seat. I bet if Dan Grassa jumped in tomorrow and called a game instead of me with Anthony, it would sound like those two had been together for 15 years. That's just, the personalities of those guys.
All right, you've been connected to the Jets since 1996, like you articulated before. Aaron Glenn was drafted in the first round, 1994. He is now the head coach 31 years later. What have your takeaways been in the early going when you're not broadcasting from Winnipeg or Dallas, NHL playoffs, as you hear some of the news come out of One Jets Drive. Mind you, we know the green and white have been moving in silence.
Yeah. I watched all the press conferences and listened to everything he said, like everyone else. I have yet to have the chance, because I've been on the road so much, to spend any time with him. I have no idea if he'll have any memory of me. I mean, I was, a 26-year-old backup play-by-play guy with a microphone in the locker room when he was, but I think he left the Jets either the year of or the year before I got the job full time. So I was just one of those guys in the locker room with a tape deck over my shoulder and a microphone, part of the gaggle. I don't know that he would remember me at all. Maybe he will. I'm looking forward to getting to know him again. But everything that he said, I mean, you were at all the press conferences, you've interviewed him. When has he said one thing since being hired that wasn't the thing that you or a Jet fan would want to hear? Right? Like, this matters to him. Being here matters to him. Being asked to come back to this, where he was drafted into the league and basically played the majority of his career, like began a family, like that's in his DNA, and it matters to him. And I think that, it really seems like he and Darren Muji are very much kind of the same mindset of how they want to build a football team. And they're not into making headlines. They're really into foundationally putting a team together that hopefully the guys that are already on the team that can be stars can benefit from that foundation being behind them.
Shoes, I thought this quote was particularly impactful. He said this during OTAs. OTAs started here for the Jets this week, and the media was allowed at practice on Wednesday. He said, "We're going to be selective in everything that we do. I don't want this to be an outfit where everybody fits." And that's just the way it is.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to draw this parallel out of bitterness and also out of maybe not giving them their due respect, but like, he's got some Patriots background. Does that not sound like what they would kind of call the Patriot way? Right? This is not for everyone. And we want to find the guys that this is right for, and that we also know are right for this. And that, to me, was one of the biggest things that allowed the Patriots to constantly surround Tom Brady with the right guys all those years, to allow him to succeed and allow that franchise to succeed. And guys that eventually almost it wore out on them. Like, some guys eventually had to escape it because they were a part of it for so long, but very rarely did they experience that kind of success when they went anywhere else. There has to be a buy-in for how you want to do it, and you got to find guys that are willing to buy in. And I'm really encouraged that he's making no bones about it. Like, he's kind of putting his cards out on the table. Look, this is not going to be for everybody. The way we're going to coach this, the guys we're going to bring in, the way we want to play, how we're going to build our team, what we're going to ask you to do, it's not for everybody. But those that it's for, we know it can succeed, and he does come from places where there's been a lot of success.
Speaking of buy-in, the Jets exercised their fifth-year options on 3 2022 draft picks: Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson. Wilson talked to the media this week, Shoes. He said, "I'm hopeful I'm a Jet for life." What was your take on that?
And I remember so many off seasons with the Jets. One of the biggest headlines would be how much salary cap the Jets have, right? How much space they've got. They've got 50, 60, $70 million of space to go out, and they can sign this and they can sign that, and they can go get the most expensive, kind of toy out on the market. And it's fun to talk about that in March and April, heading towards the draft, and they're adding big names. But you know who doesn't have a lot of cap space each year? The Chiefs, or the Packers haven't, or Baltimore, or Pittsburgh. Like, those teams don't have a ton of space because they've got good players on their team. And that's who they want to pay. And to me, that's the thing that goes the furthest in the locker room, that when you see a team bring guys in, realize they are their best players, and then give the salary cap space that you have available to those guys, right? They should be paying Garrett Wilson. They should be paying Breece Hall. They should be paying Jermaine Johnson. They should be paying these guys on the offensive line. Those are the guys that you, Sauce, you want to keep those guys, because hopefully being here and resurrecting this matters to them as well. That's all part of that culture that I think Aaron Glenn wants to build. So to me, it's a good sign to not have cap space. And it's a good sign when you're taking your available cap space and giving it to the guys who are already on your team and have earned it and deserve it. So, yeah, happy to see that they're making that commitment to those foundational guys.
100% participation here, and it's a voluntary. This is a voluntary phase of camp. So if guys aren't happy, they don't have to be here. Mandatory minicamp is not for a couple weeks yet, but at the beginning with this new staff, they're buying in.
Yeah, and look, you know certain guys, regardless of whether it's kind of quote unquote voluntary or mandatory, they're going to be there, right? Like, you call it mandatory or voluntary, Malachi Corley is going to be there because he's trying to hold on to a spot on the team because they're drafting wide receivers. And like those guys, they're not going to miss anything out of a fear of job security. But like, is Sauce Gardner not going to be starting at corner for the Jets on opening day, or Garrett Wilson starting at wide receiver for the Jets on opening day, if they were to somehow, issue some kind of a protest and skip voluntary OTAs? So, of course, I mean, those guys are the best players. Their job is safe. And yet they're all there with a new coach and a new coaching staff and a new system. And they're all buying in and they want to be there and they want to be a part of this. And I mean, to me, that's why you pay those guys, right? Like, that's why you reward your best players with, picking up the fifth-year option and talking about contract extensions, because you want to keep guys that are bought in here. Not only are they bought in, but they're also the most talented guys on the team.
What do you make of quarterback one, Justin Fields? First, I wanted to ask, did you call any of his collegiate games?
I did. There's someone posted a highlight somewhere, and someone showed it to me of him throwing an Ohio State touchdown to Garrett Wilson. So I called it, Justin Fields to Garrett. So there is somewhere out there a call of me calling a touchdown pass from Justin Fields to Garrett Wilson. So I definitely had him in college. I mean, he was a pup, right? Like, he was a baby. I don't even remember if we met with him. Maybe we did. But he's obviously a totally different human being now, because he's been through, some building up of armadillo skin, I'm sure, going through the draft, now being in the NFL, and bouncing around a little bit, now trying to find, a home. What I liked, though, about the position he's in is, unlike other quarterbacks, the way they're putting the team together, and they certainly showed this to you with what they did in the first round of the draft, drafting, Membo at right tackle. It almost seems to me like they are envisioning a team that can insulate him for some success, the same way that the last time the Jets were really good, they insulated Mark Sanchez. Right? Like, Mark Sanchez was behind a brick wall of an offensive line. He had Thomas Jones and LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Green, guys he could hand the ball to. They had certainly good enough skill position players, maybe not quite as, as good as Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, but very good skill position players, and a really, really good defense. And that, to me, kind of describes what they're doing with this team, right? Like, build a big offensive line in front of them. You've got 3 running backs, any one of which could carry the ball 25 times in a game, and you'd probably think we could develop a game plan with that guy carrying it 25 times and go win, and they've got 3 of them. Drafting him a tight end, drafting him a wide receiver. It seems like they're putting, kind of building a fort around him and saying, look, that you don't have to go out there and be, a world beater. Like, you can be a guy that leans on his running game, leans on his offensive line, sets up play action, uses your own legs to go make a play once in a while. And we've seen that have success here. And for a guy that, probably feels like first couple of teams that had him quit on him, I don't know what his confidence level is. And when he gets punched in the mouth the first couple of weeks, which is going to happen, it happens to everybody. is he going to be the most confident quarterback in the world, or is he going to have to grow that confidence back? Well, they've now given him a team where you probably can grow that confidence back with this group, as opposed to, having to bring, like an Aaron Rodgers in and basically saying, all right, this is your show. This is all about you. This is all about where you want to go with the ball. The whole offense basically just runs through your right arm, and that's going to be what judges our success or failure. And that's not the way it is, I would think, with this group at all. So I'll be optimistic that they're at least setting the table for Justin Fields to have a chance to succeed. I'll be as interested as anybody to see how he does early on.
I think it's conceivable, Shoes, that the Jets can go from 32nd, dead last in the National Football League in rush attempts, to top 10, maybe top 5 rush.
If you're playing to your strengths and those 3 running backs, right, and you can lean on your run game and protect your quarterback and allow him to kind of grow back into himself as a confident player, yes. Look, they had a terrific running game with Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. They leaned on that, and he went out there and won a bunch of games until Russell Wilson took over. There was a quarterback controversy. We were there. When Russell Wilson first came out to be the quarterback, it was either that week or the week before they played the Jets. They won the game, and the Jets had a couple of really bad turnovers that helped Pittsburgh win the game. But the first 3 or 4 possessions, the crowd was booing Russell Wilson. Booing him off the field, because the Jets were creating 3 and outs, and he had just recently taken over for a quarterback that was 4 or 5 games over 500. And Steeler fans are sitting there going, we're 6 and 7 and 2, whatever we are. Why did we make a quarterback change? Well, Justin Fields was that quarterback. So just as recently as last year, he lost his job, but he wasn't playing badly when he lost it. The team was winning when he lost it. So maybe at least he brings that confidence into this year with the Jets.
I certainly see the Parcells imprint on AG in terms of being tough, winning at the line of scrimmage, running the football, playing strong defense, and then the emphasis on special teams. We're going to see that throughout the year. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no question. There's a reason that, certain coaches and the coaching tree and the players that played for them, then mirror the attitude that those guys had. And that you can hear a lot of that in Aaron Glenn. I agree.
All right, so quickly, let's do something we like to call Hear Me Out. These are quick opinions. And for this week, we're going to go to Minnesota, where the NFL held its annual spring meetings. Okay, Shoes, the NFL up for debate was the tush push, the elimination of the tush push. Where did you stand on that? And are you surprised that the tush push lives on?
Maybe I'm going to get myself into trouble here. I don't know. Were the Jets one of the teams? I think they were, that voted in favor of keeping it, right?
According to ESPN, NFL insider Adam Schefter, the Jets voted to keep it.
Okay, so regardless of whether the Jets voted to keep it or not, maybe I won't get myself in trouble if they are a team that voted to keep it, although I don't know how they voted myself. To me, like, football has its roots and its DNA, I guess, probably in rugby more than any other sport, right? It's a certain number of people on each side of a line of scrimmage, the ball's in the middle, and it's a massive humanity, and who can beat each other at that line of scrimmage. And this play, to me, seems to kind of be rooted in that tradition as much as any other play in football. And to me, it's kind of a basic question of, like, you can't stop it? Tough. Keep us out of 3rd and 1. Keep us out of 4th and 1. And then when we get to 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, figure out how to stop it. And to me, that's it. Like, what are they doing that isn't not only, legal in today's rules, but also almost kind of rooted in, like, the DNA or the prehistoric version of what we know as modern day football. This is like as far back as you're going to go. When dinosaurs were roaming the earth and football was being played, they ran plays like this. And it was
you're
up to
aligned
you to be, some manhood to get up there and stop it. You can't stop it. That's not our fault. And so I have no problem with the tush push staying in the game.
The voice of the Jets aligns with the Jets on this one, huh? All right.
Yes, I do. I didn't know for sure if I did, but I guess I was afraid I was going to give that opinion and find out that the Jets are one of the teams that voted to get rid of it, and maybe they would yell at me for having my opinion. But that's my opinion. Figure out how to stop it.
Oh, okay, so the Lions removed this proposal where they wanted to say reseeding in terms of the playoffs because last year's examples was that people talk about was Detroit and Minnesota. They played that final game of the regular season. That was for the NFC North title. Minnesota loses that game. They finished 14-3. They open up on the road in the postseason. The owners actually didn't vote on this one, but do you think that wild card teams who have better records than division winners should be seated higher?
In my opinion, I've always thought this, and I think that there might be like ways to put this in, but it's a little off the wall. I do think you can make an argument that for fairness sake, a division winner shouldn't get a home game, but only if there are some like tiebreakers involved, as in you're a second place team in your division and your record is at least 3 or 4 wins better than a division champion, or a division champion's below 500, like something like that. But to me, if you just blanket say we're just going to seed it by record, you're going to open up just as many problems going in the opposite direction than you have now. So you're going to have situations, as you said, now we're going to have a division winner that's like 9-8 or 10-7, and there's going to be a team that's 14-3, and somehow they end up in second place, or they lose a head-to-head game with another 14-3 team, lose a tiebreaker, they're on the road. Is that fair? No. Is it also unfair, though, where there's a division where everybody looks at that division and knows, oh, come on, right? Like 3 of the worst 5 teams in the league are in said division. And the team that wins that division, like for many years, the Patriots in the AFC East, right? Like they just rolled out of bed and they had 7 wins out of the 8 games, if not 8, right, on the docket. Like that can throw things out of whack in terms of fairness too. So I don't know. I do think that there should be a reward for winning your division. I think they should still keep the integrity of that in place. But maybe if they came up with some benchmarks that you had to hit that were so out of whack to create some fairness. But I would lean towards keeping it the way it is and rewarding a team for winning their division if they're not going to make a change.
All right, but what I'm hearing from you, I think, potentially is down the line, you wouldn't mind seeing, hey, listen, if you win the division, but maybe you're under 500, you're not hosting a playoff
I
game.
wouldn't have a problem if they came up with some of those. I mean, when we get to like the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season and they put up the NFL tiebreakers for who's going to make the postseason, I mean, my God, it's like code for a computer. Like you can't even keep up with it because there's so many machinations. What's a couple more? So like what I would add to the tiebreaker perspective is I would say if you are a division winner but you're below 500, or if there's a 2 seed out of a division and that 2 seed has won, say, 3 or 4 games more than a division winner, then I would take that team and put it above any division winner that they have gone past in terms of like a gap of wins. I think you could do something like that if you wanted to try to, like what I'm trying to do is thread the needle. I'm trying to keep the perspective of the importance of winning your own division and some kind of a reward for that, but also having maybe a fail-safe in place when there's a year where a division winner is just so obviously weak and undeserving of a home game and a top 3 or top 4 seed that you've got a mechanism in place to make sure that somebody doesn't get screwed. That's all. But if you just make it purely based on record, you're absolutely going to get some teams that are going to have an unfair advantage because they might be in a weak division. And a team might, like right now, regardless of what your record is, if you win the AFC West, you're good. Like you're a good team, right? There's some really good teams in the AFC West. And if you win that division, you deserve a home game. I don't care what your record is, right? Like you obviously had to run kind of a gauntlet. you can absolutely come up with a way to penalize a team for winning a division that's really competitive if you're not careful. And that's what I would want to guard against.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk playoffs and big moments. Shoes, do you wake up sometimes during the spring and wonder where the hell you are?
Yeah, I do. A lot of times it's like, what day is it? That also, a lot of times it'll be Saturday. I'll think it's Wednesday. I'll think I have to call home and talk to the kid. Oh, wait a minute, the kids are in school. Like I'm, you not only forget where you are, but you forget what day of the week it is because it all does run together.
And do you feel sometimes when you're at the airport, you are actually part of the movie, maybe a sequel to Up in the Air?
Yeah, like with
George Clooney.
yeah, with and also with rest in peace wishes to the great George Wendt, who just recently passed away from Cheers. I feel like Norm, like walking into Cheers sometimes when I walk into Newark Airport. People see me at like the TSA. Sometimes they recognize me. I'm like, oh, that's not good. If TSA recognizes you, that's you're here way too much. And these days, just escaping Newark Airport is a challenge in and of itself. Beyond the games or getting to where I'm going to.
Fair enough. Well, you're back in Jersey now. We're happy to see you back. We're happy to see you. What was that experience like? How would you sum up the Stanley Cup playoffs? And I really want to emphasize here Game 6, your tremendous call of another Jets team, the Winnipeg Jets, against the Dallas Stars, and the confluence of events there.
Yeah. It started with me having almost like a little bit of a schizophrenic experience as a broadcaster because on one hand I've got a team named the Jets trying to win a playoff game. Their opponent was wearing green and white. I know it was like all kinds of worlds colliding. But yeah, for folks that didn't know, a career Jet, and I say career Jet meaning career Winnipeg Jet, since their most recent incarnation of the Winnipeg Jets when Atlanta moved back to Winnipeg, their first draft choice was a guy named Mark Scheifele, and Mark Scheifele was to the Winnipeg Jets, or is, what guys like Nick Mangold and DeBrickashaw Ferguson and like guys like that are to the Jets, right? Like a legitimate, what you hope Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Brees Hall are going to be, guys that'll play their whole career with the Jets. With Winnipeg, Mark Scheifele was an unrestricted free agent. The worst kept secret in the NHL is nobody wants to play in Winnipeg, and he re-signed to stay in Winnipeg because it mattered to him. Same way it matters to Aaron Glenn to come back to the New York Jets, right? It's in his DNA. He's invested. And then his father passed away overnight before Game 6, and he was told that in the morning in Dallas. And we got to the rink for the morning skates, and we were told we don't even know if he's going to play. And what decision could possibly be the wrong decision? I mean, if he goes home, he's going home to his family after his dad passed away. So, but then very quickly we were told that coach went over, saw him in the hotel, and he immediately said, I am playing. I talked to my family. They want me to play. I want to play. And I know my dad would want me to play. And he scored the first goal in the game. And the game goes to overtime and Dallas wins and the series comes to an end. And then there's the handshake line. He's breaking down. We're documenting that. The celebration of the stars. There was all different kinds of things firing around. And our crew did a great job, I think, of documenting every bit of it. And it was an amazing event to be a part of.
What is that like in that moment when he does score a goal less than 24 hours after his father had passed? And like you had mentioned that, hey, they didn't know if he was going to suit up, lace up. And he's out there on the ice. And not only is out there on the ice, but he scores. And you have to capture that moment. And you're all invested, but at the same time, you don't even have time probably to take a step back and the magnitude of it. How do you handle that?
Yeah, my call was something like, with the heaviest of hearts, Mark Scheifele, scores and he immediately goes to the bench and gets mobbed by his teammates. To see him on the bench with a smile on his face, knowing the grief that he was carrying, and then all of that emotion let out after the game. You could see that as well. yeah, I mean, it was all you can do is document that moment and let the pictures speak for themselves. And I think that's what we did.
You did an awesome job. You always do. You are one of the most versatile play-by-play men out there. I kind of want to end with this before we get back to the Jets. One quick one. How are you able to do it? Not a lot of guys can say, okay, I've done NBA before, I've done NFL, I've been the voice of the Jets for 24 seasons. You do NHL, Stanley Cup playoffs, and oh, by the way, here in a couple months, you're going to get your schedule for college football. How are you able to go from sport to sport? And what kind of advice do you give people coming up in the industry?
I mean, I'm a sports fan. Like, I watch everything. When I was young, I watched all sports all the time. So, I mean, look, definitely don't overrate what I do. I get ready for a game the way, like a teacher puts together their lesson plan to stand in front of their kids in the morning and present the lesson plan. And, the way a lawyer gets ready for a case. I mean, I do my homework, and then hopefully you're prepared and you go and you just document what you see. So yeah, I'm not digging ditches, and I'm certainly not, it's not brain surgery either. It's sports, and hopefully I'm just something that is adding to the enjoyment when really it's all about the athletes, right? I mean, I didn't play, I didn't coach. I'm definitely aware when I'm watching the NFL or the NHL or big time college football or basketball or NBA, how incredibly gifted the people that I'm watching and documenting are able to do what they do. And to me, all I'm trying to do is bring that home.
When you are in the postseason like that, let's get out of here with this one. How much are you looking forward to the next call of a Jets playoff game?
And not just a Jet playoff game, but a home playoff game. That's what I want to see. I want them to win a division. I want Jet fans to be at the game, all of them. I mean, obviously there's always a group of Jet fans that have been at every road playoff game, but I remember in 2002 when they won the most unlikely of division titles, and, they played a home playoff game and won by 1 million, and we're walking out of the stadium afterwards. I remember saying to the guys, I'm like, man, that place was absolutely electric. It was rocking. How much fun was that? I can't wait to do that again. That was it. We've never done it again. They haven't had a home playoff game since 2002. So for the Jet fans, the ones that tailgate every single week, that come to all the games, that go to the draft parties, that, consume all of the stuff that you guys do, as, the real diehards, the ones that deserve it the most, I want it for them. I want them to have the experience of being in their stadium, watching their team in a playoff game on their home field that they have a chance to be at, without having to hop on a plane, out to Denver or out to, wherever, out to Kansas City or something and go scalp a ticket from a fan of another team. I want them on their own season tickets in their own seats to be able to be at the game and watch a home playoff game. And so I'm rooting really, really hard for Jet fans to get to experience that.
Well said. Great seeing you, brother. Welcome back home.
Glad to be here. I'll see you soon. Sooner than we realized, probably.
Game day and every day, score a jewelry touchdown with Kendra Scott. Shop, fashion, and fine jewelry fit for another winning season at your local store or KendraScott.com. Shine bright, do good with Kendra Scott. We're a long way off from counting wins and losses, but the Jets are executing their plan. They've moved in silence and put in the work. Aaron Glenn is setting the tone, and there is buy-in. You can see that late May when you have 100% participation at voluntary OTAs. You can see it when star wide receiver Garrett Wilson, who is eligible for a contract extension, says he wants to be part of something special. He wants to be here working with his teammates and the new staff, and he said there's a way you go about the business when you love what you do. You can see it when Quinnen Williams owns up to a social media post calling it immature when he posted on X about another rebuild year for me. Listen, he wants to be part of the change here. He said, Quinnen Williams said, I was paid to help turn this thing around. The Jets are going to build this thing the right way with Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn. This is a young roster. 3 players are north of 30. Consider Tyrod Taylor, the backup quarterback, is 35. Thomas Hennessy, the long snapper, is 30. And Josh Reynolds, who will compete for that number 2 wide receiver spot, is 30. The aforementioned Quinton Williams is still a babyface 27, and he's the second longest tenured Jet. He sounded different this week. You're already seeing a lot of buy-in. There are going to be bumps, and this is just the start. But the culture change has begun. That's it for us. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. We're going to be back here next week.